Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Shyness is something we rarely talk about, let alone elevate in our loud, often brash, TikTok-obsessed, all-singing and dancing world. Meet Melbourne-based Kaley Chu, the founder of 100 Lunches with Strangers, a movement she founded off the back of her best-selling book of the same name, where Kaley shared a journey from a shy immigrant to a confident TEDx speaker in just 2 years by getting out of her comfort zone and arranging 100 lunches with complete strangers. When COVID hit, she turned virtual and has arranged over 350 lunches with strangers, ranging from CEOs, billionaires, and even celebrities like Shane Jacobson, and now works with others to help build their confidence, grow their network, and unleash their potential. Kaley has spoken at over 200 events, both in person and virtual, over the last 3 years to spread positive energy and help others grow and connect. She's also created 2 strong communities with over 4,000 members combined, with weekly events to help people grow and connect. One targeted at personal development and the other supporting Asians in Australia. Kaley is aged in her 30s, is happily married and is a proud mum to 2 boys. And I'm really keen to find out more. So welcome to the Politics of Everything, Kaley.
Thank you for having me here, Amber.
Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Since 2017, I have relied on Zencastr's all-in-one web-based solution to make the process quick and painless, the way podcasting should be. If you know me, I'm pretty obsessed with quality guests, quality content, and quality sound, and that's what Zencastr allows me to do. Not to mention, it's really easy to use, even for my guests that aren't particularly tech-savvy. There's nothing to download, they just click on the link and we start recording. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and with everything from local recording to automatic post-production all in the one tool, you don't have to leave your browser to get each episode done. I want you to have the same great experience that I do for all my podcasts and content needs. So I have a special offer for you. If you go to zen.ai/politics of everything and enter this promo code, you'll get 30% off in your first 3 months when you sign up to Zencastr Pro. That's zen.ai, politics of everything. It's now time to share your story. I'd love to know a little bit about your early childhood ambitions. Did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up? And was there something that kind of is a bit of a theme that's sort of taken you to where you are now?
Yes, I know what I want to be when I grow up. Since I was a little girl, like earliest memory, maybe 5-year-old, I always want to be a good mum.
Oh, that's great. And so obviously you're a mum now. Did you go to university? Did you study? Do you have some sort of, early career which we can draw upon?
Yes, I went to Melbourne Uni, commerce degree, and I've done financial planning for about 7 years before I became a, speaker, coach, and author.
Excellent. So shyness is defined as the tendency to feel awkward, worried, or tense during social encounters, especially with unfamiliar people. And of course, we don't know each other at all, but I must be one of many people that you've met that you haven't actually met previously before doing something like this. I like to ask people about these kinds of, experiences, because I think many of us can relate to it, even if you are an extrovert like myself. Is this a superpower? Because I guess in some ways shyness can help you get more prepared because you don't feel as confident when you're going into a new situation. Or have you always viewed it as something you need to fix? Because, in careers, in business, even on, our personal lives, being seen as shy can be seen as a bit of a deficit. Do you have a couple of examples of how you view shyness?
I love what you say about shyness being a superpower. I don't know if that's the case, but because I've been shy for so long, lacking confidence for so long, I do feel that I am a little bit more observant than other people. Because I could sit in a meeting or a dinner or like a catch up event for like 3 hours and not say a single word, just by observing people, looking how people interact with each other. And with that, I feel like I can, understand people's behavior a little bit better. So maybe
You must be a great listener. That's what I'm thinking. Is it kind of, is that go with the territory when you're shy? Are you listening because you're observing and you're not necessarily just wanting to speak?
I think so. It was frustrating though, because you mentioned about extrovert. I actually believe that I'm an extrovert since I was born. It's just because of the shyness. I was a very frustrated extrovert. Like they're like introvert people who like to be sitting in the corner, reading a book or not participating at all, and they're perfectly happy. But I wasn't. I was the one that I want to join the party. I want to join the conversation, but because of my shyness, because of my lacking confidence, I couldn't. And that is so frustrating.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. And I've never heard anyone describe it like that. I mean, I've heard people talk about people kind of being introverted but acting like an extrovert at work, but then they want to get home and they know they're an introvert because they're very happy on their own. But like you say, if you're always the observer, but you are frustratingly keen to participate, but are just lacking, I guess, some of those, innate qualities to do that, that must be challenging. Do you think shyness is a cultural thing or in our DNA somehow? Like, do you think there are families of people that are all sort of similar in a way, or you're a hybrid of your parents? And when I mention the cultural thing, without wanting to be stereotypical, I went to a boarding school in Sydney and it was very multicultural, and we had a lot of students from overseas, particularly from Asia, in the boarding house. And I did notice that there was a degree of shyness, but not amongst themselves. And so I think sometimes it was a language barrier, if that makes sense, not feeling as confident with their English skills or not knowing how to relate to us native Australians, if you like. So I did observe that, but I do wonder if you've got a view on how shyness is kind of manifested.
I think that's a combination of everything that you mentioned. Cultural definitely contributed to that, because when we were little, it's very different looking at how my kids learn from school now and how I was taught when I was a little girl at school. It was just so interesting, because here everyone encouraged to speak up, and if you put up your hand and you share, you got encouraged. But for me, when I was studying in primary school and I was in Hong Kong, we treated as a good girl if we just listen, like we just listen to the teacher and then just absorb as much as you can, instead of being a two-way participating thing. And
like a sponge, a sponge of information to be soaked up.
yeah, we've been told, as a Chinese background, we're so good at memorizing stuff and, academic wise, but that is actually pretty sad, because we're not taught about how to do the presentation skills or communication, etc. In particular for girls is, we raised in being encouraged to be like a listener and a follower. So that definitely make a difference. And when you mentioned about, your previous experience about the cultural thing, and absolutely yes, as an immigrant or international student, I think moving country, English not the first language, definitely,
It's a big barrier. It
yeah,
is. I can imagine. It would be for anybody, I imagine, even if, it wasn't your heritage to be, much more of a passive person in a conversation. I think, it's such a huge thing to move countries and obviously then have to study in the language which may not be your first language.
Yeah, and then I think it's just a little bit overwhelming as well. Like everything's changed, and you kind of want to just stay in your comfort zone, hang out with the people from the same background. And I was not racist. I just want to mention that I was not racist. But
No, it doesn't come across like that. No, not at all. I do understand, because I think it's no different to anyone. In a way, we're all a little bit tribal in the sense that, people you have something in common with, you'll obviously gravitate towards, in an unfamiliar situation. That's a very natural human response, I think.
Yeah, it's just scary to talk to people who looks different and cultural different and everything's different, and you just need to step out of a comfort zone. But one of my biggest surprise since I started this 100 Lunches with Strangers journey is how wonderful and friendly and amazing Australians are. Everyone was so friendly. I don't know what all those like negative comments I had in my head, about how people judging me and stuff. But no, like everyone was just so friendly.
So tapping into that movement you've created, for someone shy, how did you convince yourself to meet 100 strangers for lunch? And I guess, what are some of the lessons that taught you? You've just tapped into one about how people surprise you and the barrier isn't really as high as you make it out to be. But like, what was the tipping point that made you go, I've got to go do this and it's really going to help me?
I got a new job, and I really want to impress my boss. I was so well prepared for a meeting, but during the meeting, I could not say a single word, and I was so frustrated. Like, I knew I could do this, but because of my shyness, because of my lacking confidence, and I really disappointed myself. And that was the day that really changed my life, because after that, I had a chat with my boss, and we decided we had to do something. Like, something's going to change, because I can't live in the country for 12 years and still not able to communicate with strangers. And because I was so determined that day, I sent out 30 lunch invitations, and 3 people said yes. And that's how I started my lunch journey.
So when you say you sent out invitations, did you text? Did you email? Like, what were the mechanics and how did you choose these people?
Good question. I thought I would go for LinkedIn, because that's like a platform a little bit safer, and you can kind of stalk them professionally before you send up the lunch invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a great idea. And were you proposing, did you tell them why you wanted to meet, I guess? Because the thing is, with any sort of, stranger kind of approaching you, even if it's through LinkedIn, which obviously is a professional platform, it is a little bit strange. People might be thinking, oh my gosh, does she want to date me? What's this all about?
I think my email was pretty straightforward. I just go, "Hi Amber, I saw you've done this podcast. I really admire you, or I like what you're doing, etc." A little bit about them, and I go, "This is my New Year resolution that I want to have lunch with 100 strangers, and this is a little bit information about me. I'm married. I've got 2 kids. I'm happy, and this is my work. And would you like to be part of my journey?" And people pretty receptive about that.
Amazing. And when you went to the first lunch, I'm thinking the first one, like anything, the first of anything is always the hardest. How was that? Did you have to kind of come up with some conversation points? How did you prepare yourself for that particular lunch? Because it could have been a coffee, right? A coffee's short. It's 15 minutes if it doesn't go well, half an hour if it goes well. A lunch is a little bit longer. So how did you actually prepare yourself for those actual engagements?
The first lunch was definitely longer, and even longer than usual. I think that was an hour and a half, and that was not because we had a lot to talk about, because I couldn't talk much. I gave him mainly one word reply, which I felt sorry for him. I had a much longer lunch because I was having a keto diet at that time, like no low carbs, and the only thing that I could eat was chicken wings, and I was having my table manners and have the chicken wings with knife and a fork. So it took me longer to
That's
finish my
amazing.
meal. It was really awkward, but like I mentioned, I got 3 yeses before, when I was so determined to change, and I'm so glad that I did, because otherwise I probably have given up.
What's the hit rate? So if you have to have lunch with 100 strangers, do you have to send out 500 invitations? I mean, do you remember sort of the kind of the metrics around getting
But
that 100?
when I first started, I think it was about 10% people said yes, because people think I'm weird, or it's just hard to arrange, or I've got
Or you
people
could be
coming
a
back
bot,
to me.
or you could not be a real person, a deep fake or something like that, in the online world.
They're like, no, I think she wants to sell me something. She must be like a
Ah,
network marketer or something. But that's the feedback that I've been told after the whole journey, when they explain to me why they decide to ignore me at first and then come back to me 2 years later. But then as I start to share more on my social media, I talk to people about, hey, this is my journey. These are the photos. These are my learnings. And then from there, I start to get a higher and higher and higher accept rate, whatever you like to call it. But yeah.
so what has the experience of this, and obviously the virtual option you've done, you've basically met almost 500 people now through online or in person. What has it really taught you about shyness and in your own personal, I guess, lessons about this?
I think doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert. I think a good communication skills or social skills, being confident within yourself is just crucial for having a happy life. I feel like I'm so much happier now that I can just be myself instead of always thinking about what people think of me. And instead of trying to fit in, I feel like I can just be me.
Excellent. Many people, including extroverts, would feel shy at some stage. I don't think anyone's, on top of their game and feeling like they want to talk to everybody every day. Nerves are natural when we face new people or unusual situations. I'm thinking like the TEDx talk that you've mentioned you've done. How has your experiment helped you? And do you think you're no longer shy, or are you just a high functioning shy person?
High functioning shy person. I love that term. I mean, like you mentioned, everyone's got some, shyness at some stage, or feeling confident on at other times. So I feel like I used to be shy all the time or lacking confidence all the time, and now I feel much better. That majority of the time I feel very comfortable with myself. So yeah.
That's excellent. So it sounds like it's been a great experience for you. Changing tack a little bit, I asked people a couple of quite consistent questions. I'd love to know who have been your most important career or life mentors and why? And perhaps it's someone you met at lunch. I'm not sure.
Yes, I do have a lot of people that I'm very, very grateful for. And one of the guy that I appreciate a lot, his name is Michael Russell. And it's really interesting how I met him. Yes, I had lunch with him, but how I got to have lunch with him was because one of my lunch guests, he didn't even tell me that he used to work in a publishing house. He just told me he works in marketing. And because of him, after my lunch experience, he encouraged me to publish a book. And that's how I got the book. That wasn't even planned. And then after that, he shared my story on his social media, and one of his friends looked at it and said, "Hey, Kaley, can you come to my office and share your story with a few of my mentees? Because I think you've got an interesting story." And that was my very first sharing or public speaking experience. And I was expecting 10 people in the office, but we had like 35 people waiting for me in the room. And Russell was sitting at the back of the room listening the whole time. And that's how we started talking after. So one thing led to another, but it's always lunches that connect us together. And yeah, really, really life-changing experience.
I bet. And did that inspire you then to want to go and do more public speaking? Because obviously it's not the natural place where a shy person would want to push themselves into.
I think after the lunch with strangers experience, it really changed my perspective in life about saying yes instead of saying no, and go, yeah, why not? I'll just give it a shot. So after that experience, Michael actually gave me my very first corporate speaking gig, and he bought 100 copies of my book to give to his staff, which I'm very grateful for. And after that, he's like, wow, I really like your speech. It's a very refreshing because it's a true story. And I literally just got on the stage and shared my story and got Q&A sessions, etc. But he thought that was interesting. And because he's the CEO of the company, he literally just called his other CEO friends and say, hey, you need to use Kaley for your speeches as your next keynote speaker. And then they're like, I've never heard of Kaley Chu before, but since you recommend her, we'll use her. And that's how I started my keynote speaking journey.
It's amazing. So if we spoke again in a year's time, what would be your number one goal to have achieved and why? Surely not another 450 lunches, but maybe it is.
Thank you for asking. A lot of people ask me that question and go, oh, are you aiming for like 500 lunches, 1,000 lunches? But you know what? It doesn't matter at all, that number to me, because I feel like I already transformed. I feel like I overcame my shyness and I really enjoy my life now. My next journey is really to encourage other people to do the same, because I believe that doesn't matter who you are, where you're at, what you want to achieve. If anyone willing to take the leap of faith and have 100 lunches with 100 strangers, their life will be different and they will be at a place that they couldn't even imagine before. The learnings from strangers, the new connections, the opportunities that come because of the journey is just incredible.
What would be your final takeaway message for us on the politics of shyness? You've given us so much, I guess, insight into your own experience. But if there's anyone listening today that's like, that's great for you, Kaley, but I don't think I could do that, what would you want to say to them?
Of course, everybody can. In fact, there are a lot of people started doing this journey as well, and they all have very, very similar results. I remember when I jumping out of the plane a couple of years ago doing the skydiving thing, I was screaming all the way in the plane.
That's
I feel
pretty
sorry
normal.
for other people. I screamed before I jumped. I was screaming the whole time, wondering why would I put myself in that situation? When I got on the ground, it was such amazing experience, and I did that happy dance. I couldn't control it. I was so happy. That's what I want to share with the audience. Sometimes there are things that's out of our comfort zone. We know that's a little bit scary, but don't focus on the scary part. Don't focus on the plane going up the sky and open the door and force a jump out of the plane, but the happy dance when we got to the ground. And it's just so worth it. And never let your comfort zone limit your potential. We can all achieve a lot more than what we expect, and we can change our destiny.
I love it. Such wise words. And obviously, you've had such an amazing experience creating this movement and obviously sharing it with others. If you do want to connect with Kaley Chu and book her for some keynote speaking or buy a book, there will be details on the show notes. It's been a great pleasure to have you today, and welcome back anytime to tell us about how you're going and maybe what you've achieved next in the future. Thank you so much, Kaley.
Love to. Thank you so much, Amber. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Take care. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests, so if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdanes.com and my crew will get back to you very soon.